I started this channel so I could be connected directly with fellow fans of film and television, animation, cartoons, all of it. I wanted to be the one to be honest with you about my thoughts about the entertainment industry. I believe a content creator shouldn't be here to protect actors, actresses, directors, writers, studios, networks, or streamers. I think it's very sad that once people become successful on these platforms, they do exactly that and they become corrupt and untrustworthy. People like Mama's Geeky, Soups, etc., etc., etc. On this video, I want to talk about Alison Mack. If you've never heard of her, she played Chloe for 10 seasons, a whole decade on the television show Smallville. One of my favourite interpretations of DC, of the DC universe, but one of my favourite, if not my favourite, adaptations of the Superman character. Smallville was a fantastic show. And casting Alison Mack was a huge deal because she was so utterly talented. I took her character of Chloe Sullivan to my heart. I had a crush on her, I looked up to her, but I also looked up to Alison Mack as an exceptional actress, and Alison is an exceptional actress. Now I'm going to read you an article on her from Variety cataloguing episode 1 of her podcast. She explains about, I think we all know what she was involved with. She was involved with a cult. Now, I don't know all the details of all of that. I'm going to read everything to you. She decided to do a podcast to explain what happened. Let me be absolutely clear. And I'll be direct with you, Alison, in case by some miracle you're watching this. It's not for me, it's not my position to forgive you. I can't give you forgiveness for what you did. The only people who have the ability and the power to forgive you are your victims. It's as simple as that. I have written a 5-season Smallville spin-off titled Metropolis. Alison Mack's Chloe Sullivan is in every episode. If I pitched this and this was to become a thing, I would want Alison to be involved. That doesn't mean I'm justifying what she did. I could never do that. But she was cool. She turned state's evidence. She did a deal with the authorities and she did around 2 years in jail. She's done her time and she's paid her debt to society. But of course, because of her actions, many, many people were scarred for life, and that mustn't be forgotten. But at the end of the day, this is the darker side of Hollywood. This cult leader recruited her because she was Alison Mack, because she could lure in young women who looked up to her. This is why I always say to young people, be very careful when you trust celebrities, because ultimately they're not the trustworthy people you think they are. They come from a very, very corrupt world. Shall we read this article then? Smallville star Alison Mack gives first interview on surviving the abusive sex cult NXIVM and going to prison. I don't see myself as innocent. Why is she doing this podcast? Because she wants to reinvent herself. She wants a career in the entertainment industry again. And she knows that no one's going to touch her with a barge pole. You know, you see stories of people who have misbehaved, rebuilding their careers. For Alison, it's very difficult because the alleged crimes that she participated in hurt a lot of women. So at this moment in time, no one in the industry is going to touch her with a barge pole. So she needs to change the reputation around herself. So this is why she's doing this. And this is why she said she doesn't see herself as innocent. She knows. She's probably got good advisors. And they've decided to do this podcast to try and clean up her image. But let me be clear. It's going to be very, very difficult for her to convince anyone in the industry to touch her with a barge pole again. Now, if I had an entertainment company, I would work with Alison. I am a forgiving person. I still think it's not my place to forgive her about this, but she did her time. This is the world we live in. Once you pay your debt, to society, you move on. The problem is, these acts have victims, and I understand that. I'm just not someone who can judge and judge someone over again. So that would be my take on it. But anyway, let's keep reading. Alison Mack, the former Smallville star who became known as the infamous enabler of Nick, basically, I think we'll just say the letters of this because I can't read it. NXI, is it VM? That's the organisation, that's the cult she was involved with. Leader Keith Raniere, as the Ghislaine Maxwell to his Jeffrey Epstein, is finally telling her story in the new CBC podcast, Alison, after NXIVM. The 7-episode podcast, part of CBC's Uncover, premiered on November 10, is hosted by Natalie Robhelm and produced by Vanessa Grigoradis of Campside Media. So this is a proper media company doing this. So clearly, she's going to be getting paid for this as well. So this will be the ugly side of it, where someone is getting paid for doing something so terrible. Again, as I say, it's not my position. It's not for me to forgive her. But, and I will always love Chloe and respect what she achieved. But yeah, I'm going to be frank about the situation. But yes, I would work with Alison Mack, right? I'm saying that up front. Mack, now 43, was a child actor who grew up in Long Beach, California, eventually moving to Vancouver to star on Smallville. The story of the teenage Clark Kent, which ran for 9 seasons, already Variety have got that wrong, Smallville ran for 10 seasons anyway, on the WB, later the CW, beginning in 2001. In the first episode of Alison after NXIVM, she recounts that it was through co-star Christine Krug that she first went into NXIVM, meeting in 2006 and embraced it quickly, and later fell under the spell of Raniere. I think that's how you pronounce his name. So it was actually Christine who was sucked into this cult, but she wasn't involved with Raniere. She could have been potentially one of their victims. And I do remember when all this came to light, Christine was very quick to say, I had nothing to do with this. You know, they sucked me in too. And I think that was very important at the time that Christine made that her position clear. I trust and believe Christine Krug, just in case anyone's curious about that. Rob Hunt lays out in the premiere episode what the podcast goal is, which is to answer, who is Alison Mack really? Is she a victim or someone who victimized others? Well, the truth of the matter is she's both. That's the ugly truth. She's both victim and perpetrator. You know, I can't even say the word. Basically, she is both victim and aggressor, right? That's the word I'm looking for. So, Mack is, as Alison after NXIVM, meticulously details, of course, both victim and victimizer. She was completely brainwashed by Raniere and became part of a harem of women who serviced his every need. She had contrived sex with. So what's this word? Basically, she had sex with him daily and gave up her life and career to move closer to NXIVM's headquarters in Albany, New York. But as Raniere's right-hand woman, Mack was also a ruthless taskmaster within the group. She encouraged other women to go to him for the same kind of sexual help Raniere was giving her, meaning that she was sending them off to be raped by him. And that is the sad truth, right? That's the dark thing here. And, you know, you probably think badly of me saying, well, it's not for me to forgive her or judge her. But my attitude is she's actually paid her debt to society. That's what I'm saying. I'm not justifying what she did. What she did was absolutely horrible. But yes, I would work with her again because she's paid her debt to society. And she wasn't the one, doing the abuse. She seduced women into doing it, which is horrible, but let's be clear about that. So anyway, within the NXIVM women's group, DOS, which Raniere was secretly in charge of, Mack had slaves and enforced what they are minimally and when as well every action they took. She also recruited women for NXIVM, including the high-profile former member India Oxenberg, whose mother, actor Catherine Oxenberg, was one of the first to speak out about the cult. For these crimes, Mack went to federal prison for nearly 2 years and was released in July 2023. It was during her prosecution, she recounts in the podcast, that she slowly began to wake up to what Ranieri had done and to what she had done while under his spell. So it's important here where she's claiming she was under some trance by him. So that kind of, in a way, tries to get her out of what she did. And look, ultimately, it's the way you see this situation, isn't it? The abuses of NXIVM were first exposed widely in the New York Times investigation inside a secretive group where women are branded. In October 2017, in that story, NXIVM whistleblower Sarah Edmondson, who was in DOS, detailed her experience in the group after that story. The tides turned against Ranieri and he was arrested in Mexico in 2018. Matt was also on the premises. HBO's The Vow, a docu-series directed by Jahan Nojim and Karim Amr, premiered in August 2020 and became a pandemic success, popularizing the cult story in both The Vow and in its second season in 2022. Mack was a shadowy, mysterious figure. Ranieri had everything filmed. Often in the background, Ranieri was convicted in 2019 and is currently serving a 120-year sentence for sex trafficking, racketeering, fraud, and other crimes. Alison, after NXIVM, begins with Mack recounting her sentencing day in June 2021, during which she describes her family having to listen to what she'd done. "Oh my God, my poor brother behind me having to hear this about his sister." She says through tears, "My poor mom, I'm so sorry, you guys. I can't take it. But fuck, you guys, I'm so sorry. I don't see myself as innocent. And they were." Well, Alison, you weren't innocent. That's for sure. It goes through Mack's present, in which she has married and is pursuing a master's degree in social work. The carefully reported project, as often happens, has received blowback online for giving Mack a platform. But as Robingham says in the first episode, it happened in Vancouver. Mack received countless offers to tell her story, but had turned all of them down. You know, she had to be careful here, right? She had to be careful. And it's all about perception. This is why she's taken this podcast on, because I don't think she'll be perceived any better. Look, the public are not going to forgive her anytime soon. And as I say, no one in the industry, look, the industry are full of, they're full of people, with illicit behaviour. This ain't new to them. It's not like they have a problem with it, but it's all about optics. And the optics of Mack mean she isn't going to get any offers anytime soon. She's taken a degree in social work, right? But ultimately, I think she actually wants to get back into the entertainment game. If I was a betting man, knowing this industry, I think that's what she's up to here. Anyway. Alison has not spoken publicly since her incarceration. Robham says she's had lots of offers but always said no. Until now, she wants to tell her story in podcast form because she loves podcasts and because she's no longer comfortable in front of a camera like she used to be. Basically, these are all tactics, right? These are all tactics. She's got people, she's got advisors. Listen, this is Hollywood, this is the entertainment industry, this is how they work. There are cushier platforms that Mack could have chosen, of course, and people who actually listen to it will realise that. But don't forget, Alison is a very talented actress as well. So while she's doing this podcast, half of it could be a performance. I'm sorry, Alison, but I have to speak straight here. So chosen, of course. And people who actually listen to it will realise that Alison, after NXIVM, challenges Mack at every turn. Additionally, the podcast has the first ever interview with Lauren Salzman, the daughter of Nancy Salzman, NXIVM's co-founder. You see, this is the thing. You see, this place, this cult, was Hollywood made, Hollywood created. And it's the same with Scientology. These are very nefarious people in this entertainment industry. And this is what I keep on saying to you. Modern day English-speaking entertainment must be demolished in all quarters at the BBC, ITV, Warner Brothers, all of them, Hollywood, everything. It needs to be demolished. And we need smaller entertainment companies created for the love of the art. but to make sure that everyone working there behaves in the right way and is safe while they're making their art. We have to start again because this industry is utterly corrupt and utterly fucking dangerous. Anyway, so where are we? I've lost my place. Yes, Salzman, the daughter of Nancy Salzman, NXIVM's co-founder. Salzman was sentenced in 2021 to time served and 5 years of probation after having pleaded guilty and testifying against Ranieri, who'd also been her lover at his trial. They weren't lovers at the trial. That's a different sentence. So I think that's it. Yeah, so that's it basically. That's the article. So what they're saying is basically this Salzman, NXIVM's co-founder, Salzman was sentenced in 2021 to time served and 5 years of probation after having pleaded guilty and testifying against Ranieri, who'd also been her lover. So that's that. So let's get into this discussion a little bit further and talk more about Alison Mack. I had an impossible dream of getting Alison Mack on my channel to speak to her calmly, talk to her about Smallville, and talk to her about all of this. Look, it's a very, what she did is a very uncomfortable truth. And we'll really never know how much of a victim she truly was. Only she knows that. But this podcast is about rebuilding her reputation. I read a passage of the article where it says she's not comfortable in front of a camera. Of course she's trying to say that. She's trying to play the humble victim, right? At the end of the day, she's looking for our sympathy. I can't give her my sympathy. Ultimately, she was a very successful, wealthy young actress. She had everything at her feet. There was no need for any of this. There was no need to get involved with this person. But she did. It happens. Women are sucked in by people, and men as well sucked in by women. So it's happened. She's done it. But her victims have been scarred for life. And they're the ones that can forgive her. Not me and not you. Personally, because she's paid her debt to society, I hope she can move on from this. And I mean, look, at the end of the day, why is she doing the podcasts? How much did they offer her? Apparently she offered, she turned down other offers, but was this the highest bid? Yeah, I'm a very cynical geezer, right? Because I know how this industry effing works. I looked up to Alison Mack, as I've already said. I loved Chloe Sullivan in Smallville. I will always love Chloe because Chloe didn't do anything wrong. Alison Mack did. But at the end of the day, it's not for me to forgive her, and I would work with her given the opportunity.